welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest Simon Chokoisky, and he's here today to share with us his new book, The Dharma Method: 7 Daily Steps to Spiritual Advancement. Now, Simon is a pioneer using Vedic astrology and Dharma typing to help people discover their soul's purpose. He runs a private consulting business based on his training in Vedic life mapping and Vedic astrology. He's the author of The 5 Dharma Types, Sex, Love, and Dharma, as well as the creator of Decoding Your Life Map with Vedic Astrology DVD series. He travels widely and does seminars, speaking engagements, and of course is a regular on TV and radio. So let's welcome to the show, Simon Chokoisky.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
What a pleasure it is to have you here. I can see why your book's so popular. It's got a lot of great information in it.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, after I wrote my first book, The 5 Dharma Types, which is kind of a 400-page encyclopedia, my mom looked at me and said, Simon, why can't you write something more simple? And I said, what do you mean, Mom? She says, write something for me. I can't read this thing. So, and you know what, at first I thought, well, you know, the information requires, but she was right. And so this little, this last one, the Dharma Method, it's a little gem of a little handbook you could fit in your pocket. It's got pretty much everything I've learned over the last 25 years in my studies with spiritual teachers and self-improvement methods, and it's all boiled down into 7 basically daily steps you can take.
So I've got to ask, is your mom happy with this book?
She is. She said, I like the color, Simon. It's so orange. I said, did you look inside, Mom? She's like, not yet, but I'm looking at the color. It's good.
Hey, well, that's a start, because the color does grab you, because it's got a beautiful orange with yellow and black, so it's a great cover. So, and for our listeners that are a little bit new, why don't you break down what Dharma is? Because I think sometimes people get a little confused by that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Every time I see a foreign word, in an article or a book that I don't understand it, I immediately kind of go, oh, whoa, what's that? But Dharma is very simple. It's the opposite of karma. Think of it as the opposite of karma. If karma is sort of the stuff that you have to deal with in this life, Dharma is the way to do it. Dharma means your life purpose, what you're put on this earth to do, and how to find that life purpose. And it basically says when you're doing what God put you on this earth to do, the karma takes care of itself.
There you go. Everything falls into place.
Right. And so when you live with nature, nature supports you. When you live against nature, eventually it will catch up with you. And that is true with diet and lifestyle. When you eat chips and donuts all day and sit on the couch, eventually diabetes will catch up to you, right? And that's nature. That's nature's way of balancing the checkbook, as it were. When you live have a pretty decent diet, you get to live longer and enjoy life in the body. And so these 7 steps are basically helping you live with nature in a very easy way, because I also call it the lazy person's guide to enlightenment, because I'm a lazy guy and I don't like to work too hard. And so these are kind of little shortcuts or hacks to get into a space where things flow for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's really where people want to be. They want to be in that flow where their life is feeling, magical and everything's coming together. And it's not to say it's not without its difficulties, but just things are easier.
Yeah. And I give an example in the book, just a brief example where, let's say, this was actually a friend of mine who always wanted to be a mechanic, and he did every job but become a mechanic. But he loved working on cars and tinkering, after work. But at every job he had, a boss that was on him all the time. He had customers who were a pain in the butt. The hours weren't good. The pay was terrible, and he was depressed all the time. Finally, he he decided, all right, I'm done with this. He became a mechanic, and his boss was terrible. The customers were still a pain in the butt. The hours were bad. But despite it all, because he was doing something he loved, he could find it easier. He found it easier to smile and, give them an upgrade. When the customer was haranguing him, he found it easier to handle his boss. And so in the Eastern traditions, it is taught that you should have no detachment when you work. You should be free of desire and aversion. This is from the Bhagavad Gita in Hinduism, but also Buddhism and many of the Eastern traditions teach this yogic kind of non-attachment. Well, that's all fine and good, but the way to get there is to actually do your Dharma, because to do what you love. So while he was a mechanic, when his boss and his customers were giving him a hard time, he could just kind of sit back in that space of, look, I'm here, I'm doing my best, and this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what God put me on this earth to do. And I can engage with these customers without being reactive, without getting depressed or, being too happy or too sad. I'm in the flow of my being. And for a year or two, he didn't make any money, but then things started going great for him because he was in that flow and what they call yoga in the East. Yoga samatvam uchyate in Sanskrit. It means yoga is equanimity in action. And the only way you can have that equanimity is to do your Dharma, to be in your flow. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. In fact, I'm glad that we were talking about this because your book jumps right into discovering your Dharma type. And why is that important? Why is it important for us to know what our Dharma type is?
Yeah, our Dharma type is like a software, and you got to know if you're Windows or OS, or Mac. You got to know if you're Android or what your operating system is, and because once you do, then you can access all of the benefits of that software. So there are these 5 archetypes, and the warrior, the merchant, the laborer, the educator, and the outsider, which is kind of the most fun one because they can be anyone else they want to be. And there's a really easy quiz on my website that people can take. It's 10 questions. You answer all of them, give all the available answers, and it will spit out 2 possibilities for you, and then you can narrow it down from there. But it's kind of like knowing, what is my nationality, or what is my gender. Mm-hmm. Because imagine you wake up one day, and by the way, this is a reality for some people. But imagine you wake up tomorrow and you're not sure if you're male or female. And things like which bathroom to use, how to dress, how to talk, how to carry yourself become real issues. And that's just two types, male, female. So not knowing your Dharma type, in my opinion, is kind of like spiritually not knowing your gender, not knowing what your programming is. And I think once you know it, it's actually very useful, and it can shed light on why we do the things we do. I know if somebody hasn't taken the test or knows nothing about this, probably sounds really weird, but it's a template. It's a template to help you live your best life, live that equanimity, find your flow. That's how you find your flow, is by knowing your Dharma type.
Well, I know our listeners can take the test on your website, because I did that, and the test is also in the book. So they've got
cool.
A couple places they can pop over to and check out and see what categories they fall into. It does provide quite a bit of insight, in regards to the kind of work you're doing, why you're here, that kind of stuff. And, I found it really fascinating because it is broken down and there are different categories, but it's all based on specific traits within a person's personality.
Yeah, and what type were you, if I might ask?
I was, the warrior and the outsider. So
okay.
I guess I got a little bit of both.
Yeah, so it spits out too because you are one Dharma type and you're often in a life cycle. So you may be a warrior in an outsider life cycle or an outsider in a warrior life cycle. So as an outsider in a warrior life cycle, that means you're in a period in your life when you're going to stand for something. You're going to fight for either your clients or your children or a just cause that you want to anchor your life to. This is what I stand for, because warriors will take a bullet for another person, right?
Yep.
And if you're an outsider, then that suggests it's blending East and West, helping connect people to non-standard forms of enlightenment, of self-knowledge. So outsiders, for example, an outsider chef said, hey, I like steak, but I also like sushi. Why can't we eat them on the same plate? And voila, fusion cuisine was born. So outsiders bring two different cultures together. I don't know if that makes sense for you.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I felt that taking the test was really enlightening. It didn't really take a whole lot of time, but it does take a little bit of focus. Like you just have to look at the questions and really kind of focus on what it's asking. Well, and so in your book, The Dharma Method, after people have discovered their Dharma type, there's lots of great tips in there on how to live a more spiritual life on a daily basis. One of the things you talk about is Sanskrit. And why is that so important?
Sanskrit is one of those few world languages that recognize that sound is holy, that sound is a way to access your spiritual self. It's not the only language, but it's one that takes that premise very seriously. And so I talk about sanctifying your meals, for example, with, once or twice a day when you sit to eat, say a little prayer. And I give, some Sanskrit prayers, but it doesn't have to be Sanskrit. Sanskrit is just one of those languages that has codified sound in a very systematic way. But prayer is available in every language, even without language. And Sanskrit is a tool, language is a tool to help us sanctify our lives, because the world is vibration. The essence of vibration is language, and the essence of language is poetry or prayer. Poetry and prayer are the sort of concentrated form of language, in my opinion. And when we apply that to our daily life, such as when we sit to eat, saying a simple prayer, like in Sanskrit you can say, Om Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmeva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. That's a simple prayer that says the food is divine consciousness. The consumer of the food is divine consciousness. The process of consuming it is divine consciousness. It's all bloody consciousness. So let's help to make that process go. And you sort of connect to the process of eating. And, of course, you can do that in every aspect of life. You can use language to sanctify what you do.
Well, and a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of people say prayers before they eat in formats and different ways. And so it's interesting when we look at Sanskrit because it is such an ancient language.
Yeah, and by doing so, they get a point in my system. So every day you try to tally 7 points. Doesn't matter how you get them. And saying a prayer, you get a point. Getting up at sunrise, you get a point. Spending time to sit or meditate, you get a point, and so on. But Sanskrit is, it's a deep love that I have a deep love of Sanskrit because it in my opinion, it changes your chemistry. And before I used to teach Sanskrit, I would tell people, all right, everybody's going to take an IQ test today. in 6 months when we're done with your Sanskrit, you're going to retake that test. And I guarantee you, or your money back, you're going to be smarter. Now, I think only a couple of people took me up on that, and but they had good results. So it is my contention, and I'm not crossing my fingers, that Sanskrit will make you smarter. Partly because studying it helps to organize your mind. It's such an organized language.
And they say that when you learn another language, that it really does activate different parts of your brain. So I can see where that would be true.
Absolutely true. It works with any language. And the thing about Sanskrit is that it is absolutely rule-based. There are no exceptions. For example, in English, we say the word lather, L-A-T-H-E-R. But if you change the L to a B, it becomes bather. So how did that A become an A? From lather to bather. There is no rule in English to account for that. But in Sanskrit, a sound is a sound is a sound is a sound. Like the sun rising at dawn, it is consistent, it is the same, and it's reliable. And in that way, it really helps you to organize your thinking when you practice and chant Sanskrit.
What made you become interested in Dharma and these topics and pursue it in the way that you have? Because, I mean, you know your stuff when it comes to this.
I met a beautiful and powerful teacher whose name is Dr. Vasant Lad at the Ayurvedic Institute in New Mexico. And hanging around enlightened teachers, by the way, is one of the methods in the book. So you get a point if you hung around your teacher or you got to read something by an enlightened being, if you're exposed to sacred wisdom that way. But it was through meeting him and then other teachers through the Ayurvedic Institute that helped to catapult me into this arena. I wouldn't say catapult. It was more like shove me willy-nilly.
It sounds like you were
willing.
Very willing there, right?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay, because spiritual. When we have our spiritual awakenings or interest in one area or another, it tends to usually come at the times we're least expecting it.
That is true. Yeah, I was in college. I was a French major, and just kind of floating along, and then this hit me. I read a couple of Deepak Chopra's books. That's actually where it all started. And someone at the Chopra Institute pointed me to the Ayurvedic Institute, and they said, if you want to really dive deep, go there. And so I did, and that's how it happened.
Well, we're glad that you've had the experiences that you've had, and you've done so much research, and I know your other books are you've kind of equated them to more like encyclopedias, where this one, the Dharma method, is more easy, for people to go ahead and use as well. And so, it has me kind of thinking, with all the work you've done and where you're at this point, what does enlightenment mean to you?
Oh, what a beautiful question. Enlightenment is the process of becoming lighter, releasing baggage, releasing unnecessary attachments. It's the process of becoming lighter, but it's also the process of becoming less dark. So it's a double meaning. Lighter meaning less heavy, but lighter meaning also less dark. And when things are dark, when there are shadows, or you're walking down the street at night and you see something in the street and it looks like a snake, but in daylight, if you looked at it, it would just be a piece of rope. Okay? In darkness, we don't see things the way they are. We react with fear. We become reactive. And so enlightenment is the process of turning on the light. So where did the snake go? The snake was never there. It was just a fragment in our imagination. So we often make these, even in our political climate today, we make things very divisive and black and white. And when the light is turned on and the ignorance is sort of dispelled, we can begin to see where this person is coming from and where this person is coming from. And it really helps to bridge the gap, I think. So enlightenment is good, it's not just a selfish pursuit. Enlightenment helps everyone around you. If you become a source of light, you can help lead others to that light as well. And I think we need more of that.
We definitely do, without a doubt. And I think that's why there's such a drive now more than ever before for people to have this type of information, because they're looking to move beyond where things have been. They're looking to have their enlightened experience, and whatever that would mean for them,
And the Buddha said that enlightenment is in your hands. No one's going to do it for you. No God or being or guru is going to come down and give it to you. But that's not a bad thing, because you're in control of it. So take the reins, and I think I've outlined some of the basic techniques for how to do that in the Dharma method. Very simple things you can do to generate your own light. And you don't have to wait 10 years. You don't have to meditate in a cave for 8 hours a day. You'll start to see this happen in your life very quickly. Your relationships will improve. Your health will improve. And the way you see the world will become just a little brighter, a little more optimistic. And I'll give your listeners one experiment they can try on their own, which is, I'm sure everyone has done this already, so it's not groundbreaking. But notice that you get 8 hours sleep, but you get up at or before sunrise. So you get your 8 hours, or however many is right for you. So you're not curtailing your sleep. And then on a particular day when you feel inclined, get your 8 hours of sleep, but get up late, like at 10 a.m., well after sunrise. And see how you feel on that day. And more likely than not, when you get up very late, when you've missed nature's sort of sweet spot, sweet period, you're going to feel dull throughout the day. You may not be unhappy. You may still feel physically okay, but there's a dullness, a mental sort of haze. Whereas when you get up more or less with the sunrise and you're not sleep deprived, that's a different thing. You are brighter, you're sort of more chipper throughout the day, and you can handle your daily tasks with more ease. That's a little experiment you can try, that for the same amount of sleep, but just getting up at different times of the day sets you up to succeed or fail accordingly.
It's interesting how something that could be kind of thought of as such a simple thing can make such a big impact.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not a morning person. I hate getting up early. But I have to admit, again, begrudgingly, that this works, and this is one of the methods. Now, if you can't do it, maybe let's say you work the late shift, or you're a writer like me and you do your best writing till 2 in the morning. What to do? Well, there are other ways to bring that light, that chipperness, that optimism into your day that don't depend on getting up at sunrise. And I've tried to list those in the book as well. So as long as you do a few of these, 7 of these every day, and it's very simple, you're well on your way to enlightenment.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Simon Chokoisky in regards to his new book, The Dharma Method, 7 Daily Steps to Spiritual Advancement. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest Simon Chokoisky, and he's sharing with us his new book, The Dharma Method, 7 Daily Steps to Spiritual Advancement. Now, Simon, a question I've got, in your book you talk about the Dharma Method and how it allows for us to kind of recharge our bodies in a spiritual sense. A lot of times when people think of recharging our bodies, that spiritual component isn't even really in the picture. So this really reframes things in a completely different way, and I'd love for you to expand on that for our listeners.
Yeah, I talk about diet too. So there are some foods that are really good for your health, things like garlic and mushrooms that, however, nonetheless, can be spiritually dulling. And so there's a reason why in certain spiritual traditions, things like garlic, onions, meat, chili peppers, fermented foods like alcohol are prohibited. It's not that those foods are evil. It's that, and in fact, many of them are good for you. Fermented food is good. It brings health. It brings good bugs into your system. But an overabundance of those foods brings another sort of life consciousness into your body that can compete with your consciousness. And so I talk about the All Saints diet, trying to eat these very pure foods on a day-to-day basis for about a month will completely clean out your the way you see the world. So there are different ways to bring that light into your life, different strategies.
Do we get a point for that one too?
Oh, yes, big point. And if you actually fast once in a while, oh my God, you get like 1 million bonus points for fasting.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk to you about fasting. Because you have this chapter in your book, and it talks about fasting and doing it kind of intermittently. And I'd love for you to expound on why that's so important.
So in most of our religious holidays, by the way, are built around this principle. And, from Lent and Yom Kippur to the gajillion different Hindu holidays in which you fast on specific dates. Because Jesus fasted, Moses fasted, Buddha fasted, Muhammad fasted, and all of the great true spiritual saints of the world's traditions have fasted. So you got to ask yourself, if it was good enough for them, maybe it might be good enough for me too. And what it does is it literally makes you lighter. Not having any food in your body for a specific, let's say 24 hours. You're going to say no food. You can still have water. Some people even have juice. But the best thing is no food and just take sips of water throughout the day. So from dinner tonight through dinner tomorrow night. And it's really not that hard because all you're doing is skipping breakfast and lunch. That's it. You have dinner tonight, you sleep 8 hours, get up, skip breakfast, skip lunch, and then have dinner tomorrow night. But what will happen in that period, it sounds so simple, is you'll begin to see all of your desires, I'm going to use this intense word, but your lust for food. You become ravenous, and you go, oh my God. And when you sort of fight it, you realize how out of control you are, how our body's desires and needs sort of rule us. And by fasting, you begin to gain control back of your life. Because if hunger can control us, then so can the latest tweet by so-and-so. So can the latest headline on the news. So can what our husband or wife said to us, right? We become reactive. Fasting cuts that cord, and you become unreactive. Not in an apathetic way. You still, can engage, but you're just not sucked in. So spiritually, fasting helps you cut the cord to negative attachments. Physically, it helps you cut the cord to, obviously to food and food addiction. And another thing that happens when you fast is when your body finally realizes, hey, this guy is for real, he's doing this seriously, all of a sudden, I swear to you, this happens, by the way, I'm not making this up. When your mind says, listen, body, there's no way you're getting food today. It's just not happening, so stop asking, right? It's like when you tell your child and you give them that look where they know they're not getting it. Then they stop asking. And when your body stops asking, it really frees you up to do a whole slew of other things. It'll save you money. Fasting saves you money. You do it once a week. That's 52 days a year. And let's say you spend $20 to $30 a day on food, which is, decent estimate. That's like $1,500 a year, you save.
That's not bad. Well, and there's also a lot of health benefits to doing that as well.
The health benefits are enormous, and these are coming out every day. There's a study by a major university that shows the benefits of prolonged fasting. Prolonged means anywhere from 24 hours up to 5 days, but 24 hours is plenty. What happens is the body starts to eat itself. And so there are cancer cells in your body. There are cells that aren't functioning optimally. There are fat cells. So when your body doesn't have any new food coming in to keep it busy, it'll start looking at, well, where's the other food that's stored in here that I can start munching on? And it'll start munching on fat. It'll start munching and it'll start recycling those old, used up cells. So you literally get younger. I mean, 24 hours, you're not going to turn into a 10, it's not going to happen right away, but you're certainly going to feel younger. And on the cellular level, you will be younger because your body is self-cannibalizing. And it's not going to cannibalize the healthy cells. It's going to cannibalize the cells that are not healthy. And so it's a natural purification that is free. You don't have to pay a spa therapist to do it for you. You don't have to pay a doctor. Fasting is the best medicine. I think, who is it, Hippocrates, who said fasting is the first and the best medicine.
Well, I think it's so great that you can see also, as you described before, like how attached the body is to food and kind of breaking some of that cycle, because that's, you only find that out when you start a fast.
Absolutely. You truly find out how out of control you are, and it's crazy. You'll laugh if you have a sort of philosophical mindset. One of my teachers used to say, he liked to be shocking, so this may be a little shocking, but he used to say that, how do I put this sort of more PG, that the mouth and the tongue are like the sexual organs, both in a man and a woman, whereas the tongue is like the upper penis, let's say, or the upper clitoris. Okay, we're not PG anymore, sorry. In that, they are organs of desire. And by fasting, for a while, when you go back to eating, you actually enjoy the food you have so much more. Just as a person who abstains from sex for a while, when they go back into having sex, it's incredible. Every touch, every sensation is like, oh my God. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm sure that it is, that kind of explained a lot right there.
So, I was a French major in college, and so I spent a summer in France, and one quality that the French have is that they enjoy everything. And so I remember us cooking lunch, and I'm starving, and here I am making the salad, and I'm telling God, hey, are we going to eat soon? And my French friend turned to me and said, Simon, it is the craving for the food that is the real meal. You have to enjoy it. And I could tell that he was enjoying the craving, right? I'm like, you French people are weird. Just give me my But now I understand what he was saying. In the process of fasting, of doing without, that itself can be enjoyed because you know what's coming, that when you do eat, you're going to savor every morsel, right? But on your own terms, you're still under control. You're not out of control. And that's what fasting brings to you. It brings this sharp clarity. And though I know everyone has fasted willingly or unwillingly in their life, that first taste of bread, that's even stale bread, can taste like, caviar.
Mm-hmm. It is different when you've been on a fast for a period of time, how that does affect your body and how much you notice, hey, when I was doing without food, what a difference that made and what a huge impact that made. And, and it kind of leads me, because your book, again, it talks about so many different things. One of the other topics you talk about is breathing and breathing techniques. And so I would love for you to share with us, what are some of the breathing techniques that you suggest? We're not going to cover all the ones in the book, but what are some that you suggest and why?
There are simple yogic breathing techniques that bring you into an immediate sense of meditation. So my mentor used to say, yogis are all lazy. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're lazy. They're doing all these pretzel, wrapping themselves up in all these positions. He said, they do things for maximum result. And so they won't sit for 10 hours and meditate to try to get into a meditative state. They want to be in a meditative state the moment their butt hits the floor. So one way to do that is to do yogic breathing. So, and there are a couple of basic methods. One is called the bellows breath, where you basically are taking deep breaths and full exhale for about 15 to 30 times. And then you relax. You might get a little lightheaded. Then you relax, and as you're relaxing, just notice what happens. you will slip right into a meditative state. Your laundry list is gone. What your spouse said to you is gone. You know, your errands, all of this, it all sort of fades away. And when it starts coming back, you do another round of breathing. And so the yogis were very smart. They knew they didn't have time to sit around and wait for enlightenment to happen. They did this breathing to go right into the meditative state. And there is a yogi, a Western yogi, whose name is Wim Hof. Now, he doesn't know I'm talking about him, but he has brought his Wim Hof method to the West, and it's become extremely popular. And it's an example of yogic breathing that he tested in hospitals. He's also called the Iceman because he set the world record for being under ice for like 2 hours, and it didn't affect him at all. And he says it's all because of the breath. And yogis have been doing this in the Himalaya mountains for generations. Through the breath, you can control your body's metabolism, its temperature. You can keep from getting sick. He was injected with toxins that would produce vomiting and fever. Nothing happened to him. Or his students, by the way. And so breathing, it sounds so simple, and it's free, by the way. Here's another free thing. By the way, most of the things in this book, you don't need contraptions or devices for. You can do them yourself. It's another free and easy method to go right into that meditative state. So shout out for Wim Hof.
Well, there you go. Well, and that is such a great thing, because a lot of times when people get books, they feel like they've got to, go and invest a lot in a bunch of other things, like either, if we were talking about fasting and what have you, all these other products that will help them get to where they're looking to be, or something they're looking to achieve. And one of the things there are a lot of things I appreciate about your book, The Dharma Method, but it was very simple. It's easy for people to go, okay, I can do this. This is something that I can just implement daily, and that's kind of part of what your book's all about.
I hope so. And yes, that was the intent. And we writers, we still have to sell our books, but I think for $10 or $14, whatever the book is retailing, I think the information in there is worth worth the price. And and every technique in the book I've done rigorously and tested, because I don't believe in just rehashing things, just sharing information. Now, it doesn't mean I do them every day. In fact, talking with you, Marianne, you're such a wonderful catalyst and warrior. Even though we're on the phone, I could feel your eyes on me going, and this is me, it's my own imagination, I have to start fasting again because I stopped 2 months ago. So here I am on the air making this statement that I too am a lazy guy. I don't always follow this stuff, but when I do, I feel amazing. And so I too am going to start fasting again. But the point was that I've tried everything I've written in this book has been tried not just by me, but by generations of spiritual seekers. And the fact that these techniques are still around is testament to their effectiveness. Because if something didn't work, believe me, it would have died out long ago. Mm-hmm. But we still have fasting, we still have meditation, we still have all of these foundational techniques that have been done by the greatest mystics in history.
And what's great is that you just condensed it for us in a book, so it makes it really easy to not only understand but implement. And sorry if I'm pressuring you into fasting.
No, I love that. By the way, I'm an educator type, and the educator's job is to bring wisdom to the world, to share it with the world. But the educator's weakness is that we don't always follow what we preach. The warrior's job is to fight for a just cause, but they also need guidance and wisdom. So think of it as King Arthur is the warrior and Merlin is the educator. They go well together. So for example, so you and I complement each other that way. Your discipline and strength and nurturing complements sort of my intellectual, philosophizing stuff and grounds it into reality. So warriors and educators, I talk about this in the first book, complement each other. They bring out the best in each other. So I appreciate it.
Well, hey, that's great. And it's interesting. On your website, you also have listed, because there's the, I don't know, light side, dark side, the pros, the cons, whatever you want, wish to, how you wish to identify that of the different Dharma types. So people can really identify, like, ooh, am I kind of slipping into this? Or maybe I need to pay attention to this other point that really resonates with things that I do sometimes when I'm pressured or stressed or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and for some people, that's going to be the most important takeaway. I've had clients come and go, yeah, I know the good stuff about me. What I don't know is, where are my weaknesses? And reading this has really clarified it. And looking back at my relationships and so on, it makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, just because you know your Dharma type and you're flowing with it doesn't mean that everything is set. Now you have to, it's like you're in the car, you're on the road, but you still got to steer it. You got to make sure you don't veer off the road. And every Dharma type has something that's trying to pull them off of their path.
Yeah, I think that happens with all of us. Well, and so when we talk about, I know we've brought up food. We've covered so much. In kind of going through your book, and when you did the research for it, was there something that kind of surprised you, that you were like, gosh, I didn't know this, or I didn't realize that this worked this way?
Yes. It is the thing I put at the end of the book. I think it's on the last page, or certainly the last chapter, which is my teacher, before he passed away, he shared something very beautiful with me, which is, Simon, feed people. Because I asked him, sir, what is the best spiritual path? And he said, feeding people is the best spiritual path. Feed people, and all the grace and everything will come to you. And I've realized the truth of that, because when you take time out of your day, you immediately surrender that for others, right? So your ego is out of it, right? Your ego is out of the equation. You set out 3 hours. I'm going to go out and buy food for 50 people or 10 people or one person. Doesn't matter. And then I'm going to find those 10 or 15 hungry people, and I'm going to give that food to them. And when you can do that, and by the way, Tony Robbins talks about this. He said, even when I was the poorest I've ever been, when I fed people, I felt wealthier than the billionaires of this world. And he was right. And he's absolutely right. Because no matter how little you have, I bet you can still scrounge up something to go help someone who has less than you. And in most big cities, you don't have to travel far. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona right now, but every city I've been to, even while traveling, you just go downtown and you'll find people, feed people. And I swear to you, you don't need any other method. Don't even buy my book. Forget it. I don't need the $10. In fact, I'm an author, so I make maybe $1 from each book or less. Just do it. And in that hour or two, you'll feel something that most of the saints of the world have felt, which is that sense of, it's just a special feeling. I don't know how else to put it. And if you don't feel it, keep doing it. Keep doing it until you feel it. And because those are the qualities of an enlightened person. They give what they most want to have. And for most of us, we need food. For all of us, we need food for our survival. So food and water, shelter are the things we most want to have. When you share those with another human being, even an animal, you exhibit the spiritual truth of I am in the body, but I am not the body. I am a spiritual being having a human experience. That act embodies that. So that was the surprise for me.
You know, and what a simple truth though that is. You know, it doesn't have to be complicated. You know, if you're doing something like feeding people, I mean, how beneficial is that? And it does make you feel better, and you're helping somebody at the same time.
And people can't hate you when they're filling their stomachs, no matter where you come from, whatever you're, you know. Mm-hmm. There's a karmic aspect to it, to where you are. And it's not by accident that churches do this, you know, synagogues do this, temples do this, meaning reaching out to the poor and the hungry, just as Jesus did and the Buddha did. And, you know, in fact, I mean, I don't know how much time we have, but there's a story I share in the book about this enlightened yogi who is sitting there, and he has one tortilla a day, tortilla with a little butter, and that's his meal for the day. But he's so enlightened, he sees God in everything and everyone, in the rock and the stone and even the animals nearby. And one day, just as he's making his tortilla, this dog comes and takes the tortilla. And his eyes go up, and he says, "Oh, Lord," and the dog's running away. He says, "Lord, Lord, you forgot the butter." Not for an instant did he have any sense of, oh, shoot, my lunch is gone. No, it was all, Lord, no, you forgot to take the butter, please. You see, this is how an enlightened person thinks, and we're all on the way to get there.
Well, and you know, and we're all helping. It was that saying, we're all walking each other home. You know, it's kind of like that. You know, so
yeah.
I love that books like yours, the Dharma Method, which is available for sale for those that want to ignore you and still buy the book. You know?
Go feed people.
It is available. And also, you have some, I know you have some things on your website as well, some other workshops and stuff like that, online courses. Why don't you share those with us? Because I'm sure our listeners would like to hear about those.
Sure. I have a workshop called Secrets of Sacred Sound, which is an 8-week course in the power of sound, especially Sanskrit, but also English language manifestation prayers and mantras. That's on my website. I've got it's a pre-recorded course. We did it earlier this year. And you'll also see any future courses that I have coming up. And I do intend to do a Dharma Method 7-week workshop as well in 2019. So just sign up for the newsletter and you'll get all the information.
Well, and I'm pretty sure you had something on Learn Sanskrit as well.
Yeah.
I was pretty impressed with that. I'm like, that's pretty cool. You can actually learn Sanskrit, you know, because most people don't think that they think it's right up there with Latin. It might be a dead language, you know?
It is, and I had this argument with Anu Garg, who is the editor of A Word a Day, which is or Wordsmith, which is a daily email that a lot of people get. And he, in one of his emails, said Sanskrit is a dead language. But I prefer to think of Sanskrit as a language in meditation, in samadhi, waiting for people who study and embody it to wake it up. And the reason I say that is because in Sanskrit, you can say things like, you know, my computer software is out of date. You can't, you know, I took a plane to Chicago yesterday. There are words for modern usage. And so now the thing about the Sanskrit course is that it's actually out of print. So there's only a very limited number of them left, and they are only available from my website. So if someone wants to take that course, by January, February. Well, let's see, this is airing January. I'll try to have a few in stock. And this is not a marketing ploy, by the way. There's really only about, I think, 8 or 9 left. So if you would like a copy of Sanskrit Without Stress, please go to my site, check it out. The only place you can get it, and you get to interact with me if you have any questions about it.
And real quick again, why don't you give us your website one more time?
Sure. It is spirittype.com, just like it sounds. Spirit, 2 T's, type, Spirit Type.
Spirittype.com, where they can find that. And gosh, you've got so much information on your website and, of course, in your book, The Dharma Method. Simon, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thank you, Marianne, and thank you for sharing your time and your vision to help feed people through the radio waves. And I think what you're doing is truly amazing and laudable, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you so much, Simon. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you, and of course to talk about your new book, The Dharma Method, 7 Daily Steps to Spiritual Advancement. If you'd like to pick up your own copy of The Dharma Method, you can at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie bookstores. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.